Hi, Asabi, and welcome to the Serenade Files. And thanks for
Oh,
taking time to be our Bravo profile interviewee for this issue. How are you?
hello. Hi. I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Oh, well, doing as best as we can in this time.
Mm,
And we all know what
mm.
we mean by this time, don't we?
Yes, we do. Thank you, COVID-19.
Thank you. So I'm in Adelaide, and you're in?
I'm in Brisbane, Australia.
How's
Obviously,
Brisbane?
Australia. Yeah.
How is it up there right now?
It's actually pretty good. So it is we are practicing social distancing and we have lost um a lot of our social venues such as pubs and RSLs and concerts and that sort of thing. Um, but I'm not going to say it's business as usual. There's definitely less traffic on the road, but people are still working. Some people who can work from home are working from home. Others who can't are just working at their respective workplaces. So I do have a casual job that I do every now and again in construction, and that is still happening. So I was just there today. I'll be there again tomorrow. But it's when I'm performing, I might do it 4 or 5 times a month. But now that I'm no longer performing, I do it a bit, maybe 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah,
So, which is it's good because it keeps some income coming. But
of course.
mm,
Now, look, I'm really grateful for you taking the time out to answer some questions for me and my readers. We're trying our
sure,
best to keep the arts as visible as possible during this time.
yes.
So, do you mind if I ask you
Mm.
a few questions about you and
No,
your
go ahead.
career?
Sure, I'm an open book.
Wonderful. Okay, first of all, let's start with you telling us briefly about what part of the industry you're most active in and how you trained to be in that industry.
Sure. So I'm a musician, a singer. So I'm more active in the music side of the industry, but I also do film and television and a bit of stage work as well when I can get it. But my bread and butter, excuse me, my bread and butter is mainly as a musician. So I sing with a number of different bands. I do a lot of session work. I do a lot of festivals, weddings, corporate events, all of that. That's pretty much my full time gig. Let's see. I started singing at the ripe old age of 8 in a traveling children's choir. So
Oh,
we did a
wow.
lot of choral music. Yes, and it was a lot of fun. I had a really good time doing that. We sang in different languages. That's where I learned music as well. So they instructed us on how to read music, how to sight read, how to find your pitch. Let's say, like if you're singing with an orchestra, so we would perform with orchestras, with soloists. We traveled. So I did that for about 10 years before I went off to uni, where I studied engineering, strangely enough. But I was a founding member of the first, and I believe it's still the only female a cappella group at the university. So it's been going now for almost a little over 20 years, that
Well,
a
that's
cappella group.
that's quite a good legacy.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And they're award winning. They've traveled, they've been all over. So they're well known in the US. So college a cappella is a very big music genre, and they're well known in the college a cappella circle.
I'm going to have
So,
to get you to hook us up with some YouTube links later on if that's possible.
yeah. Definitely, definitely. I'll have to see
Wonderful.
if I have any for them because I haven't been as active with them for a very long time, but they're definitely on YouTube. I think at one point they might have had a Wikipedia page as well.
Okay,
But yeah, so they're
great.
very popular. They've recorded, um, yeah, they're a great little a cappella group there. They're called the USC Sirens.
That's a good name.
Yeah. And then from there, I got involved in musical theater when I was in California and started doing some more theatrical work. Of course, working as an engineer. So I fitted in where I could, but I was in a smallish town just north of Los Angeles, about 2 hours north of Los Angeles. So we would have professional performers from LA come up and do musical theater with us. So as amateur as it was there were professionals that were involved as well, and I really enjoyed it because I was working with people from all walks of life, all age groups. And I, as a person who wasn't from that city, it was a way for me to sort of find my niche in the city and start to fit in and make friends and that sort of thing. So I've always looked at the music industry as a way to fit in to wherever I moved. I'm a bit nomadic in that sense. So and being an engineer, you tend to move around a lot. So I would go to places where I didn't know people, and this was how I would get to know people, was by getting involved in the music industry or the theatrical industries.
Yeah, wonderful. So you
Mm.
mentioned that you were an engineer.
Yes.
That's pretty impressive. Not every singer is also an engineer. So at what
Mm.
point did you decide to commit wholeheartedly to being a freelance artist?
Last year in 2019. So it's something that I had been thinking about probably, since 2015. So I do have an advanced diploma in stage and screen acting. So I did eventually go back and study, and I'd been doing little bits of work here and there. And every now and again, I would have to say no to things because my work commitments would get in the way. And as much as I enjoyed engineering, I finally decided that I didn't want to someday look back and say to myself, I wish I would have just taken the chance to put all of my energy into performing to see where I could go with it. So finally, it was actually 2018 when I made the decision to do it, and I retired, I say, from engineering last year in January. So this has now been a full year of completely supporting myself and working 100% in a creative lifestyle.
All respect to you, Asabi. It's not an easy move, isn't it,
It's
to
not.
give up the 9 to 5 and the comfort. So for you're saying it was mainly a side hustle, your arts,
Mm,
before you decided to commit completely. So I'm
yeah.
guessing that the COVID-19 situation has affected you in some way, both personally and professionally. So do you want to talk
Oh,
about
definitely. Um, so of course, I perform at a lot of festivals and a lot of weddings, and as soon as they put the cap on on any performance that might have a draw of 500 people or more, I pretty much lost the majority of my work. And we were just looking at dates. That was the third week of, I think it's the 16th of March was when that came into effect. And so every festival that I was slated to perform at, boom, completely gone right
that?
there. Um, and so I thought, well, okay, we still have the weddings and, some corporate events, the smaller ones, that'll be fine. And then I think it was 2 days later when they capped it at 100. And so then pretty much everything that I had lined up for this year was just gone right then and there.
Yeah, I
And
sympathize with you completely.
yeah, it just, and I had some brides and grooms contacting me saying, oh, we're going to postpone, we'll find new dates. I had one groom that was just adamant, we're still doing it. We don't care what anybody says. There's only 85 people. We're going to do it. And that the last public gig that I did was the 21st of March.
Mm.
And that was pretty much it. But I wasn't completely disheartened. I I jumped on board right away, and I got together with a friend. So I don't play any instruments. I just sing. Maybe I play tambourine a little bit. Um,
One would
and
argue the voice is an instrument.
oh, thank you. It is, and it's the best instrument, I think, the easiest one to carry around. Um, but I talked with a friend of mine, and we were just going to be rehearsing because we had a blues festival coming up, and we needed to work on some original music that I'd been writing. And I said, "Hey, let's do a live stream. Let's just live stream and see what happens." And so I put out a virtual tip jar. We had no planning whatsoever. We did about 40 minutes of just some jazz and blues standards, and we made a little over $500. So I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." So I did that the next week, but with a different artist because I wanted to share, in the proceeds and whatever we make. And so I've been doing that on a weekly basis. I think there was one week where I've done a couple of private gigs where people have just paid money up front and we've set up a private link just for them and their friends. So we've done a couple of those as well.
So, how can
So
people get access to these performances that you're talking about now? Is there a website they can go to?
So we did it straight through Facebook. So
Okay.
the live streams are available on Facebook. The private ones we did through events. So we created a private event for these people where they could invite their friends and then put out the virtual tip jar, and we live streamed directly from the event so that people outside of the event couldn't then get into it because they were paying specifically for that. So this is only week 5. It feels like it's been forever, but this is only week 5 and I've done 4 of these. We, as much as we can, will keep doing them. So I work with different musicians, whoever is comfortable enough to, say, okay, let's get together and we can do this at each other's respective houses or what have you.
Mm.
But we are obviously cognizant of the fact that we do need to practice social distancing, because I don't want to contract anything, and if I'm a asymptomatic carrier, I don't want to pass it on to anyone as well. So
Of course.
it's a bit more difficult to sort of put these together because there are people that just aren't willing to meet up and get together. But there are many ways you can do this. I found some really good jazz backing tracks, and I did a jazz concert for some people in the US and, made some good money that way. They paid me in US dollars, which
That
was
is
quite
very
nice.
innovative, Asabi.
Yeah.
And right
So,
now, the US dollar is probably doing better.
oh, yeah, it's doing well. It's against the Australian dollar. Yes, it's doing much better. Um, let's see. I do teach drama, after school drama from one of the local, not elementary school, primary schools. And so we've taken that online. And so we use Zoom. And so I have all the kids up on Zoom and they get to see each other and they enjoy it. And I've just tailored the games to be more online games because a lot of our games are improv and they're interactive and there's a lot of physicality in those games. So
Yeah.
I've just needed to tailor them to suit an online environment. So I do that, and I work with another teacher, and we share games with each other, writing a skit for the kids. So hopefully this will be over by the time they reach the end of the year so they can perform their skit. But if not, we may just have to record it.
Look,
Do something
you're
online.
doing exceptionally well in this
Mm.
situation. I guess you've overcome these hurdles better than most freelance artists. In terms of income, you mentioned earlier that you've got a bit of a casual work on the side, but does that
Yeah.
entitle you to any of the government assistance that has been recently announced?
I don't believe it does because I think one of the stipulations is that you have to have been with the company for a year.
Mhm.
And I have not been with that company for a year, only since October. But I am a sole trader and I do trade with my own ABN, which I believe that entitles me for one portion of the JobKeeper stimulus. So still working through that. So obviously, as you know, contacting what is it? The ATO is quite difficult. So you just log your interest and they just say, we'll get back to you. And there's nothing more for you to do. So I've done that. I've filed my taxes for last year. So I did get my tax return, and which is, it's good. So that'll tide me over for a little while. But, we don't know how long this situation is going to last.
Mhm.
And obviously it won't be that small amount is not enough to carry me through the next 6 months if that's what happens. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to qualify for the job keeper.
Yeah,
And
well,
if
fingers
not,
crossed.
I'm hoping that I can get enough casual work um, to sustain me for now. So,
Well, it sounds like you've got lots of ideas up your sleeve in the virtual realm. So I'm
yeah,
quietly confident that you will come up with something. You're very industrious. You're an engineer, so I
yeah.
think it's natural.
Well, yeah, I'm a natural problem solver.
That's a pretty good skill to have right now.
mm, mm. So it's
Okay,
working.
in terms of the arts, and we were talking about government assistance and the industries that are most hard hit by this situation, it feels like a lot of artists are crying out because they're not feeling visible or heard. How do you feel about the visibility of the arts in Australia compared to, say, America, where you've lived for some time?
I know that America, so there are a number of countries, I believe the UK, Germany, America, that have created specific stimulus packages for their artists. Australia has not done that. I feel that, and not just artists, but anybody that works in a casual manner or in a freelance manner, I feel that Australia definitely needs to address those concerns, because right now it just seems like they say, well, you need to go through your company. But if you don't have a company, or if you're, there are a number of freelancers who don't have ABNs.
Yeah.
If they're not set up to operate as a self-sustained business, then they could be left out.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's right. So I'm on the National Performers Committee for the Media, Entertainment, and Arts Alliance. And these are some of the issues that we talk about and that we are trying to address with government now. It's an ongoing fight. They are making some inroads, but nothing has been laid out just yet.
Yeah.
But it is something that we are working towards. So it's not, so yes, we do look after our actors, but it's not just actors. It's journos, it's casual workers, anybody who works in a casual capacity. So we are trying to get some sort of stimulus for them.
Yeah.
And I know that Spain is actually looking at doing a universal basic income, and a number of countries have looked at doing this in the past. I feel that that would be a way forward, depending on how long this situation lasts. But a universal basic income would be something that could be given to the entire populace. So regardless of how much money you make or what type of job you have, everybody gets a baseline, say $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month. And then if you choose to work on top of that, you work on top of that, so you can then supplement that income with something else.
Do you know
I
if that's
at
coming
least
from the Spanish government, would that then be taxed or is that tax free?
I don't know the particulars on how that works. I know it's been tried. I know they've talked about it in the US. I think there was a presidential candidate that was talking about it. It's an idea that's been around for decades, so it's not new.
Mhm.
And then I'm not a politician, and I really don't know much about politics, so
Sure, of course.
I wouldn't know how you then implement that. So it's not a simple fix, definitely
Mm.
not, and it is something that would take a lot of discussion and a lot of time to work out, but it's an idea and something that would then help everyone in society, including casual workers, to basically stay above the gap.
Of course. Look, thank you
Mm.
for your work on the MEAA as well.
Oh, no
You seem
worries.
to be proactive in quite a lot of areas. Having said that, what would you say to artists or freelancers or casuals who have lost quite a lot of work or income due to the cancellation of their live performances and well, usual means of income? What would you say to them right now if you could?
Oh gosh, there's so much to say, because I mean, it's a roller coaster of emotion, and I'm not immune to it. I was just talking with my podcast host today about, it's feeling up and down through this time, because performing is like breathing to me, and I kind of feel like my air supply is being cut off. Um, so there are hard days, and then there are some really good days. And my advice would be to just take it one day at a time. Try to be as inventive as possible. Um, Work on your music, work on your craft. Don't hide inside, because I tend to do that. I mean, there are days where I just want to stay in my little cocoon of a room and watch Grey's Anatomy, and it's like, oh no, you could be working on your voiceover reel, or you could be updating your show reel, or you could be doing this. um, Reach out, talk to people. That's the simplest thing that you can do. Don't feel ashamed, because that's especially when you're in a society where they tell you you don't have a real job because it just looks like you're out having fun all the time. That's what every job should be. Every job, you should be enjoying yourself. If you're not enjoying yourself, you need to find a new job.
Mm.
um, so don't feel ashamed by not being able to work, but and take that time. When you do start to feel down, go ahead and take some time and relax for a minute, and just stop and allow yourself to de-stress, and then just have a think about, what can I do, what can I improve upon, what can I upskill myself in, and do that. So it's easier said than done, trust me. I know, because when I have my slump days, no one can tell me anything, and I'm just like, nope, I'm not getting out. I'm just gonna lay in bed and I'm just gonna watch this show, and I'll be fine. And then I get up the next day and I just make myself do something.
Mm.
So, and it's okay. I feel it's completely okay to have those days. You have to push through them, you have to acknowledge them. But this is the perfect time, though, to upskill, to learn something new, um, play with, get out GarageBand, play with some sounds, make some beats.
Mm.
Just do anything. Go for a run.
Look, thank you. Wise words. As you said,
No
easier
worries.
said than done. I think I read, just on an aside, I read about the anxiety that some people are feeling to be
Mm.
productive as well. So there's two sides of that, isn't there? It's
Oh,
a great time
definitely.
because you've got time, but then you feel another sense of anxiety to use that time in some way. But
Yeah.
I guess it's okay to just be, isn't it?
It is. It's completely fine to just be. And sometimes it's just your body telling you, just relax for a minute or take a break. And it's okay. I think where we struggle is that we don't think it's okay.
Mm.
You don't want to be seen as lazy or as not trying.
Yeah.
And these are very, very difficult times. Nobody anticipated this happening. So it's okay to just not do anything. It's fine. It is fine. Acknowledge that. And because if you don't, it just builds up and it
Mm.
keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And then the next thing you know, you can't do anything because you've got this overwhelming anxiety that's eating away at you.
Mm. Look, I appreciate your integrity. It's not easy to
Mm.
be upfront about that, particularly as creative people. But you found a balance somehow in the last 5 weeks of being really productive, probably more productive than anyone else that I'm able to contact in this time. So talk to us a bit about some of the projects and creative outlets you've come up with in this time.
Oh, there've been so many. And they've probably driven a little bit of anxiety. I'm not one to have anxiety, but I've noticed that, oh, I've got a little bit. So, one of the first things that I did, this actually happened before the virus hit us in a big way. I mean, I think there were inklings of it. A friend of mine called me very excited and she said, let's start a production company. And I said, okay. So we started a production company.
Just like
And
that.
yeah, just like that, just a little bit of like a 45-minute phone call. And at the end of the call, boom, we had already planned our first show. We had talked with a restaurant about hosting an event for them. And we started building momentum. That, of course, shut down in about 3 weeks, but the momentum is still there. So we're still building the company and we're just pushing back our events. So that company is called BlackRock Productions. And I'm the artistic director, and my mate is the managing director. Her name is Sharon Brooks. Um, We have a website that I believe is in development. It's almost ready. We've got a Facebook page. I don't know if we have an Instagram yet, but we're building our social media at the moment. But we just put it out there. We started talking to people. She's about to send out some press releases. It's out in the Sunshine Coast, so it's based in the Sunshine Coast. We've talked to a lot of different people in that area. They're all on board. We have a philanthropic portion to the company, and so we're starting to get some schools involved. So we've got a school competition that we're building that uses voice and body. So it's completely instrument free. It's called Sing, Schools in Natural Groove. And we're looking at putting out a competition for schools to join. So there'll be an a cappella portion, there'll be a stomp or step portion. Let's see, what else are we doing? We haven't talked about spoken word. That's the next thing I want to talk to her about. So we're trying to bring the arts to underrepresented youth in the community. So that's the idea behind this. And then at the same time, we're going to be hosting theatrical productions, cabarets, concerts, if you will. So we've got some really big aspirations with this production company, and we're both go-getters. And we just said, let's do it. So that is still happening in the background as we're still building along.
Amazing.
So that's one.
That's just one.
That's just one. That's one thing.
What else have we got cooking?
The second thing is a podcast that my housemate and I have been talking about for months. And she moved in January, and we were like, this is perfect. We're now in the same place, so we can really do this. And we hadn't had time, I think, was the main issue. Like, we had all these ideas, and whenever we could find a spare moment, we'd sit down and we were still building things. And so when COVID-19 hit, it just kind of said to us, well, all right, we now have all the time. Let's get this done. So we did. We sat down, we got our social media together. We started recording episodes. I found tons of equipment in my house that I didn't know I had, and I learned how to use it. So that was me upskilling myself. And so now we do these podcasts. So they come out fortnightly. So our first one just came out a week ago, and our next one is dropping at the end of this week or the beginning of next week.
What's the theme?
Next episode. The podcast is called Wine and Sympathy. And it's 2 women, 1 bottle, thousands of stories. So
that sounds
we
great.
talk to, yeah, right?
It sounds long.
We basically sit down with people within the community, so local people that are doing great things, and we just have a conversation with them. We ask them about their lives, what they're working on. We talk about ourselves as well, and we're both in the entertainment industry, and so we're 40-somethings in the entertainment industry, and we like to talk with other 40-somethings in the entertainment industry just to find out how things are going for them, how they got into it, if they left the industry and came back, what that was like. And then, we talk to doctors, we talk to just people of all walks of life, just to get a bit of a perspective on how life is for them. We have been talking about the coronavirus a lot because obviously we want people's take on it. So interesting episodes. They're quite short, only about 30, 35 minutes at the most.
Where can we find these?
Sorry?
Where can we find these episodes?
They're on Spotify and on Apple Podcast, and they might be on Stitcher as well. I haven't checked Stitcher yet, but I need to check. And we have a website, which is winesympathy.page. And on Facebook, we're Wine and Sympathy Podcast.
Fantastic. I'm going to have to check it out. Yeah,
definitely. So that's 2. The last thing that I've done, it's not something that I created. It's the creation of the producer that I'm working with through the podcast company. And it's an idea that he has had for quite some time. And he was like, I just thought this would be the perfect time to ask you to do this. And so it's a playlist podcast that I and two other musicians host. So each week we take a theme. We each find 5 songs associated with that theme from our own perspective or our lives or whatever we want to choose them from. And then we discuss those songs. So it's 15 songs that we discuss in each episode. And then there's a playlist available on Spotify that our listeners can then have a listen to so they can hear all the songs that we talk about.
And what's that
So,
called?
so that's called Shuffology.
Yeah.
That's a great name.
It is a great name.
The study of shuffle. And that our first episode is actually going to drop on the 19th of April. So that'll be on Spotify, on Stitcher Podcast, and on Apple Podcast.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You have been so busy.
I know. I feel like I'm busier now than I have been in the last year. I feel like these things have kind of taken over from the bands and the session work that I've been doing. So when I was busy performing, now I'm busy doing these things. So once the situation is over, I have no idea how I'm going to balance all of this performing and doing the podcasts and teaching and
Cool.
but we'll
That's
cross that bridge when we
incredible.
get to it.
Exactly. Look, that's incredible. I was going to say, what's the first thing you're going to do when all this is over, when social distancing and isolation measures are lifted? But you've just got enough on your plate as it is.
There's a lot, but I think the one thing that I really, really miss is hugging people. I'm a hugger. And I had my first hug the other day. Please don't turn us in. I had my first hug in a month the other day, and I nearly broke down and cried because I love to hug people. That's the first thing I want to do when I meet them. I want to like run up and give them a big hug. Even strangers that I meet for the first time, you can tell another hugger because you go in for that handshake, but and it's just like, oh yeah, come on, and it's a hug, and I miss being able to do that. I really miss that. I miss that human connection. So
I understand. I do. I think as well as a performer, as a creative person who's very expressive physically, I can sympathize with you. You can't even kiss people on the cheek now.
Yeah.
It is hard, that element of connection that we take for granted.
Yep.
But look,
I never. Oh, it is. I think I had a little bit of a cry today, and my housemate was like, "Oh, screw it, I'm gonna hug you," and she just came in and gave me a hug, and I was like, "Oh, I miss this so much. I just miss the hugging. That's it,
That's completely understandable.
Mm.
And look, I'm really grateful for your time. That's basically everything I wanted to ask you. And I'm so privileged to be able to write about you as a creative person, what you've achieved up to now, and what you've achieved through this challenging time as well. That's just testament to the flexibility of artists like yourself.
Yeah,
it's not an easy situation we all find ourselves in. I mean, no one knows the deadline. I mean, sometimes when you're about to face a challenge, if you know the end of it, it makes it easier to cope with, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right now,
and I always see
no one
that
knows.
light. Yeah, there's no light at the end of this tunnel right now. So we're basically tunneling through darkness. And it obviously we will come out on the other end, but we just don't know when, and we don't really have a good picture of what the other side is going to look like, because we are making drastic changes to our society right now. So I think it will it be for the better? I don't know. I think there's definitely going to be some major economic impacts, major social impacts. We will have lost a lot of people, and I know people are saying we don't know the long-term effects of the virus, but we also don't really know the long-term mental effects of ourselves. So we really need to look after each other, check in with each other, make sure we're okay, because as a species, we are a social species. And this is devastating to us as a species to not be able to be social.
Yes.
So,
Thank you once again, Asabi, for your
no worries.
time, for being our Bravo profile artist for this issue. And
No
I
worries.
can't wait to share some of your insight with our readers and your wisdom and positivity, despite all of this. You're always a
Yeah.
ray of sunshine to speak to.
Aw, thank you. It's so good talking with you too. Thank you so much for asking me.
My pleasure. And keep doing all these wonderful creative things, because I was going to say before you just signed off there that it almost feels like having your background as an engineer, but also as a creative person,
Mm.
problem solving is at the very least the skill set you've got, and then you add to that all these other innovative outlets. You've been able to make the most of every situation, especially one like this. So that's very inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
So
I'm
having
doing
said
my
that,
best.
yeah,
If anyone can benefit just a little bit from what I've said or done, then that makes me happy.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will.
Mm.
Look, I'm going to say thank you,
Yeah.
and I'm going to say all the best up in Brisbane, with all your ventures and with everything going on in your career. It's a brave move to leave 9 to 5, but
Yes.
you've done over a year of it now, and I hope that there's many more years to come of that.
Great. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thanks, Asabi. See
All
you.
right. We'll chat soon. Bye.
Bye.